Welcome. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the next 5 minutes. It was great, I thought, with the exception of Rory almost dying again. But how many here, and raise your hands, who delighted at the prospect of Amy's impending death? Or was that just me? And the open body bag flung down in front of them? It was cold. That was cold. I was pleased also to notice when I watched this episode that Arthur Darwell gets a credit. Oh, yes, at last we have a consistent male companion. It's been too long. Too long. Again, I enjoyed Arthur's Rory and Alex and Matt, as always consistent, and even Amy got quite good near the end of there. I have an answer for that, which we'll talk about in episode 7. I decided in the end that I didn't like Moffat's treatment of President Nixon. And if I write Moffat on the screen again, I'll make sure that I give him 1 T. So, President Nixon, characterization. Yes, like him or hate him, the president should have got a more truthful treatment. As should even Hitler in episode 8, if indeed he gets featured. Leave the comic relief to Rory. Like the part where he fumbles with the model and breaks a bit and then tries to fix it back on again. America salutes you! And backs away looking like an idiot. It was great. I am glad, however, and I thought that it was wise that Moffat didn't bring into the conclusion any more explicit American references. No offense, Americans. Or sci-fi references, except for the fact that Cantor looked very Men in Black, very Mr. Smith-like. Because I think it could have got quite tiresome. I really thought the pace in this was great. It had loads of tasty nuggets. It wasn't a madcap flurry of unrelenting madness. A perfect match of action and less action. I barely noticed it, and it evoked in me the right emotions at the right time. Professional work. The children's orphanage scene, always love a good storm, always scary. I think the exposition to fill the audience in on the missing 3 months as well was well scripted. It didn't feel like it was forced. And what I particularly liked about that scene was the doctor's explanation regarding the nano recording element in the hand. And then straight after that, Moffat writes into the same scene an example. It was great. The tension was built up beautifully with Gold's wonderful score to boot. And then we discovered that the silent in the TARDIS was just a 3D image of Amy's photograph. Fantastic stuff. Amy in the children's nursery. On the whole, it was a great scene, but I didn't like the cliched knock into something that makes a loud noise, waking the angry monsters device. I also didn't like, in the scene near the end of the episode, that the doctor remembers that he's talking to the silence when his back is turned to them. I just thought it was sloppy work, Moffat. Or perhaps it was the production crew's fault. Worst still, though, as Song, when she's talking to Rory and the silence sneaks up behind her, she didn't turn around to see it, but she knew it was there, and she shoots it. Only thing I will consider is that the fear in Rory's face betrayed the silence present, or 2, she saw its reflection in Rory's eyes. I'm still trying to decide if I was happy that the whole silent arc was wrapped up the way it was. I don't know, after this, the build-up of the silence in season 5, I don't know, it just felt like it was a too sudden finish. The involvement they have with the little girl, however, whose identity we know now, would suggest that we haven't seen the last of them, and I kind of hope we haven't yet. last scene. Ah, when I first saw the girl regenerating, my reaction went something like this. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! That's absolutely astounding! I remember saying in a review at the time of my first watching that I found it interesting that Amy says to the doctor when she is trying to trick Rory into believing that the baby might be his, was her line, "What if it is born with a time head?" And the doctor replies, "Time head? What's a time head?" I remember observing that the streaming head of a regenerating Time Lord could possibly don such a nickname. I was delighted when the doctor refers to that line again in episode 7. It was great. I do have some insight. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I was fairly satisfied with how the silence was shattered with the post-hypnotic suggestion plot device. It was reasonable. Not entirely convinced that it would have worked quite that seamlessly. And it was actually quite violent. I know there was some reservation among a handful of Who fans that the Doctor was uncharacteristically violent in the defeat of the race. It's just another race added to his list of exterminating, basically. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Send a video response or just post a comment. That'd be great. Down to the crunch. Out of 11, I'll give Day of the Moon a Christopher Eccleston. Both parts 1 and 2 together, I'll go with a David Tennant on that one. Thanks, guys. Oh, man. That sail tape is still stuck to my jeans. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! That's absolutely astounding! I was glad, however, and I thought that it was wise that Moffat didn't bring into the conclusion any more explicit Americans.